welcome to Banking Transform. I'm your host, Jim Marous, owner and CEO of the Digital Bank Report and co-publisher of the Financial Brand. Capturing the attention of the younger consumer in financial services is a major challenge. Financial well-being is a primary focus for these segments, but engagement is very elusive. Fintech startup Zogo is an award-winning platform that gamifies financial literacy for younger consumers using bite-sized modules that can move market share and engage consumers. Created by an immigrant at the age of 19 from a dorm room at Duke University, Zogo serves over 600,000 users from 200 financial institutions in just 1 year. We are so fortunate to have Bolun Li, founder and CEO of Zogo, on the Banking Transform podcast. He will discuss the origin of this innovative app and the growth that has been achieved since Zogo's founding. So I'm going to assume that most listeners to the Banking Transform podcast are not first-generation immigrants. I'm also going to assume that none of my listeners on the show came into the U.S. alone at the age of 13 and created a financial app in a dorm room at the age of 19. So welcome to the show, Bolun. As I said in our introduction comments, you are officially the youngest person we've had on the show and probably one of the better and more exciting stories. So before we start, can you provide our listeners with a little background on yourself, as well as what inspired you to create a financial services app while attending Duke?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I came to the US when I was 13 years old. From China and went to this school in Boston, lived with host family all 4 years in Boston. And when I was in high school, my teacher really encouraged me to look into entrepreneurships. And I did some programs and so on and so forth. So when I got to Duke, entrepreneurship wasn't really this scary thing. I've kind of had a little bit of experience in high school. And I got kind of bored with my classes my freshman year at Duke. So I was like, you know what? Let me try to see if I can put something together and start a company. So I was 19. It was my freshman year. I was in my dorm, and I just started working on Zogo. I remembered I attended this financial literacy seminars that year when I was in school, and it was in this huge auditorium. All the kids came to the auditorium, and the school invited a bank to come to the school to speak about financial literacy. It was 2-3 hours on presentations about budgeting, whatever. Literally, if you look around the room, it's hilarious because everyone's on their phone, texting each other, making fun, on their Instagram, right? No one was paying attention to this banker who was wearing suit and putting on this presentations. And by the end of it, the banker would give each student a little flyer and was open a checking account and you'll get $20 when you open a checking account with us. And we were just walking out of the room. It's this is the most stupid thing ever. There's no way we're gonna even look at this bank. So that kind of inspired me, to see. I saw two problems during that seminar. Number one is I saw that financial literacy wasn't being delivered the right way to young people. And number two is financial institutions doesn't really know how to reach this generation the right way. So kind of combining the two together, we built Zogo.
So how does Zogo work, and how do you bring together financial literacy and a gamification component?
Yeah. So I don't know, how many listeners have used the language learning tools before on the App Store, like Duolingo, Rosetta Stones. I don't know, Jim, if you're familiar with these apps. Duolingo is a great example. Almost, if you ask any 20-something years old, they definitely have heard of Duolingo and have used it to learn something, learn some language. They break down these very complicated language into these bite-sized formats and gamified it with points, leaderboard, so on and so forth. So we see money as a language. Financial literacy is a language that is very difficult to understand. So what we did at Zogo is we break down these very complicated financial concepts into bite-sized modules. And we, add in all the gamification components. The user complete a module, they earn some pineapples, which is an in-app currency at Zogo, and they can use their pineapples to redeem for rewards. So they're literally getting paid to learn about financial literacy. A lot of the inspiration came from the language learning tools that our generation used.
So where did you start? I mean, financial literacy is a very broad topic. What seems to be, if you were to pick one or two areas of the biggest gaps between what a younger consumer doesn't understand and what financial institutions don't do a really good job of helping them understand, what are some of the components of financial literacy that are the most challenging from your perspective?
Yeah, this is so interesting because we have about 36 topics, different topics on the app covering credit, insurance, blah, 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 blah. And by the way, we have people of all ages on the app as well, from 13 years old all the way to 70 years old. Yeah. So we've seen like different age group have chose to start with different topics. And if you look at the younger generations on Zogo, the number one topic, believe it or not, the number one topic that they pick is how to get credit. And even when I kind of saw that stats, I was really shocked because I wouldn't think that would be the first thing on the mind for young people, but that is how to get credit. And number two is get to know financial institutions. That's the second most popular topic for young people under 25. So I think there's just a need for young people to demystify what's going on in the number one in the credit market, and number two, I guess, just financial institution as a whole. They just don't understand, right? That's why they want to learn more. And hopefully Zogo is like a place for them to go to get to know these things.
So can you explain some of the challenges you had when you went from ideation to building a financial services app for what is really a very hard to reach consumer? Because even when you bring gamification in there, the attention span and the ability to move from item to item, and certainly it's all mobile, there's challenges when you look at, not only where you start, but how do you describe the elements of financial services? And then how do you do it in what I call a legal framework? Because you get into financial services and you start to impart information, it's got to meet some regulatory guidelines as well.
Yeah, I would say, you can imagine a 19 years old trying to, when I first started, I had no idea, what I was doing. And then I would say one, credit I would give is the credit union industry. They were kind of the first group of customers that started to help us with figuring out how to deliver or how to present this. And, like how you said, meeting the legal requirements, so on and so forth. But first and foremost, okay, when we built this thing, when we were 19, we wanted to build something that would be helpful for ourselves. And that was kind of the guiding principle, like something that we would use ourselves, right? And the gamifications and all that, those are cool, those are cool elements. But at the end of the day, this is what gamification is all about. It's not about the points, it's not about whatever. It's about making the users feel like they are hitting a goal, some kind of goal all the time. Like, in gamification, we call it dopamine hit, like just making sure they're hitting that, getting that feeling. That's why no one wants to read. There's not a lack of financial literacy content on the web. There's so many of them, in fact. But what Zogo has done is we make them super short so that the user feel like they're learning something all the time, like really, quick feedback loop. So it took us a while to figure that out. And then plus the incentives, plus the rewards that are embedded with the pineapples and everything, it just get people started, right? And we think that's kind of the hardest thing, is to get started. I don't know if that answered. I don't know if that answered your question, but
yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. And what's interesting is I'm talking a lot recently in presentations and webinars and podcasts, the fact that we really, as an industry, are moving from the need to build better experiences to building better engagement, the more interactive, accurate action that we're talking about. You bring up some very interesting components that it's really not just a gamification, it's the way we talk to this generation. We tend to, financial services will never be blamed for under-communicate. We make everything much bigger than it has to be. Are the financial services institutions that have partnered with Zogo using this as their content delivery tool for this generation? In other words, does this replace other content that they previously had on the site because it's easier to consume?
100%, 100%. Right. So like, for example, Zogo, like we have an existing library of about 500 educational modules on all kinds of topics. But on top of that, the financial institution we partner with can add additional, like customize and add their own modules super easily to Zogo. So we have institution, this is super cool, by the way. Like we have financial institution adding modules to teach people about their history of how they got started, right? Like some of the community banks and like credit unions have like crazy histories. And this, it's really interesting for young people to know about how they got started and what credit union even mean, by the way, what community banking even mean. So we've seen a lot of use case around that.
Well, it's interesting then, what you just said there, where organizations build their own modules. Is there a little bit of crowdsourcing here where they get more modules from you, but you could in return get some ideas for modules you can build for other organizations based on what your partners are already building?
100%. 100%. That's the idea. Like, a lot of the modules we have on the app, we would not have unless our partner has told us that they have seen interest around the topic, right? So it's really a crowdsourcing effect. Like, for example, Jim, we're starting to get into the investment categories, like the investment apps, those like robo advisors and stuff like that. And they're giving us so many ideas of what we need to teach people about investing. And it's really a collaborative effort from everyone that we work with.
Well, I have a saying I use way too often, but just because you build it doesn't mean they'll come or buy it. Could you explain how you actually partner with both legacy and fintech firms to expand the reach of your service? I mean, how did you, at the very first time,
oh my God,
knock on the door of a financial institution as a 19-year-old?
I know.
And actually get somebody to listen to you? Because, heck, I've been in the industry a whole lot longer, and I have a hard time reaching some of these financial institutions.
Yeah, honestly, I think back, I don't know how it happened, but basically just got very lucky. I went to a couple conferences, credit union conferences. One is called Nacuso, and then I went to Finovate, and we actually won, Finovate, we won Best of Show.
I was going to say, you definitely went to Finovate, yeah.
Yeah. We won the Best of Show there, and then we and then like, I think it's just from the conference, the concept resonated with people so much that we just started getting inbound requests from credit unions, from community banks. And we had our first, 10 pilot, like just like, a lot of the other fintech, how they get started. And then they did really well and then kind of just expand from there. And today we have, close to 200 financial institutions all across the US. And sitting here today for the past 2 years, I don't know how it happened. I think it's just our commitment to this industry and how like we really care about our partners and we do whatever it takes to make them happy. And I think that kind of, help us move the needles and move it forward.
You've mentioned credit unions several times. Has that been the part of the industry that's been the most receptive? I would imagine just because of their charters and the way they do things, I would imagine that based on size, based on the type of institution, credit unions be very receptive. But how about legacy banks? How about larger financial institutions? Has it been well received by them, or do they put in roadblocks that are different than the smaller organizations do?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely started with the smaller ones. So the way it works, we started with credit unions, we moved on to community banks, and today, I mean, we have American Express as a customer. These large legacy banks. There's another really, top 5 retail bank that's going to become a partner. So it's really it doesn't matter the size now, and as much as back in the day because we weren't really proven back in the day. But today we also work with fintech actually, large fintech companies like Moneyline, neobanks of the world. So it really is just whoever. An insurance company, by the way, is another one. We have insurance customer clients that want to teach their customer about insurance. Because what we realize is teaching, like education at the end of the day is the best loyalty, like best way to get loyalty from customers. And I think the financial institution realized that as well.
So once you've sold it to a financial institution, how do these partners actually reach their intended audiences to let them know about Zogo? Because And again, I'm going to use the term, if you build it, doesn't mean that people will find it.
Yep.
And financial institutions tend to build a whole lot of stuff into their website that nobody can ever find. Nobody ever knows it's even there. How do your best partners reach the intended audience and tell them that there's this great app that you don't even have to be a client or a customer to access?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think this is one of the things we did really well early on. Almost all of our financial institution partners, when they launched Zogo, so they purchased the Zogo app, which basically they get an access code to the app that they can distribute to their members, to their customers. So, we have credit unions that they have hundreds of thousands, like 100,000 members, for example. They just send an email, very simple. That's it. Send an email to all the members, and all the members, maybe 5 to 10% initially get onto the app, actually downloaded the app because they know they can get paid to learn. Like, that's a novel concept. But once they get on the app, we have a feature called referral. A user can invite a friend to join the app, and they can earn 1,000 pineapples for doing that, which equals to $1 in reward, right? 75% of our user base today got on the app through referrals from friends and families. So basically, when the way financial institutions do it is they just launch it, and they don't ever have to look at it or do anything about it again. It's just kind of keep growing in the community by itself. Parents will start telling their kids about it. Kids tell their friends that, oh my God, look, ABC Credit Union is paying me to learn, right? And it just kind of grow itself. And then we have some more sophisticated institutions that are integrating Zogo into their mobile banking app. Like Vision's Credit Union is one, like they integrated it into their system. And that's even easier. Like they just literally get a lot of people every single month to just join.
Well, it's interesting because you could actually, if you know the path that some of your participants, your app users use, you could actually have a pop-up on the mobile phone that says, by the way, have you gone to this module and earn your pineapples?
Exactly. We do that for sure. And, we even do pop-up where if a user just learn about, let's say, credit card, right, or loans, we do a pop-up as well for our financial institution partners so that they, if they're interested, they can go visit the financial institutions as well. So there's kind of a back and forth between. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many modules are part of the Zogo app right now?
We have about 500 modules on the Zogo. And do you want to hear a really crazy stats, Jim? So we've launched the app for about 2-3 years, like close to 3 years. Take a guess how many modules has been completed by our users in the past 3 years.
Well, that was one of the two questions coming next. So let's see. 200,000 participants, I believe you said. You have a number of organizations. A million?
20 million education modules. Yep. 20 million has been completed. And that's, equivalent to about close to 10 years worth of time of users spending on the app, learning about financial literacy. You would never thought people would actually spend time doing that, especially kids.
So for a typical, either a median or mean, I don't care which one, user, how many times do they get engaged with your app?
It really depends, but when we did a pilot with this large financial institution, it's about 30 minutes a month a user would spend on the app. So 30 minutes a month learning about financial literacy. Yeah, and today we have about 600,000 users on the platform. So that really adds up. Like,
I'm sorry, 600,000.
Yeah. So it really adds up like over time for the module they complete.
So financial literacy is obviously a very broad topic, and you already mentioned the crowdsourcing that's done in partnership with your financial institutions. Are there any other ways that you approach innovation at Zogo right now?
Yeah, so we, obviously the pineapple is a really interesting thing that we've created, and it's crazy that our users would literally do anything for pineapples. Like, it's crazy. Like, basically, our financial institutions sometimes send an email and say, go follow our Instagram account. We'll give you 1,000 pineapples. Then all of a sudden, like thousands of people just follow their Instagram account. But anyway, what I was trying to say is there's something about the pineapple that is really powerful. And we are looking into the way, and I'm sure you are very familiar with this space as well, like in the crypto space, and how we can potentially, create some synergy there, and helping our financial institutions also get into this space through Zogo, with a younger audience. So that's definitely a big thing that we'll be unveiling later this year.
So is there any recent module, let's say in the last 6 months, that you added that really just moved the needle, blew it off the charts? You're going, I didn't see that coming.
Oh my God, I have one.
I forgot to build this in the initial.
I have one for you, and you're gonna laugh when I say it. So this topic is called how to play poker. Okay, and people are gonna be like, "What the heck, poker?" But poker actually it's a good way to train life skills and to train negotiation skills, like so on and so forth. Like a lot of the people in finance learn poker to learn about risk management. And we don't teach how to gamble, to be clear, in Zogo, but it's to use poker as an example of how it translates to your financial lives. And it is kind of this, topic that we started, once again, crowdsourcing, like one of our partners mentioned it. And it has become the most completed, the highest completion rate on the entire Zogo app. How to play poker.
That is crazy.
That is incredible.
But again, it's finding new ways to communicate something that's extraordinarily threatening to people.
Exactly.
It's something that people don't like to talk about, but with everybody feeling uncomfortable, you've got to find new ways of communicating. And again, I would imagine that all your developers and all your innovation team and even the organizations that are heavy users, they are using their employees and your team that are all young to say, here's a way you could probably reach this audience.
Exactly. Like we have almost all of our financial institutions also use it for their employees and for their training. So that's, another thing that they're doing. It's also a classroom for teachers. They give it to students as almost like a homework. So it's just a very flexible tool that people can use like wherever they want.
So as we've been discussing, Zogo uses gamification and really bite-sized modules to improve financial literacy. Are there ways to leverage these two tools to expand the use of financial services as well? In other words, to help sell or introduce products to the marketplace you're talking about?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, at Zogo, we believe that education is the best sell. When you educate someone about something, it's a very natural thing that the other person start trust you more and want to do business with you, right? So when like I mentioned, our financial institution can freely create any modules they want on the Zogo app. There's just one condition: it has to be educational. Even if it's about their products, it has to be educational. And we have just seen crazy rate of conversions from these modules to like the actual products, because it's not just like, hey, like, what I experienced when I was in high school. Here's a checking account, earn $20 when you open a checking account. But instead it's educating you with a few modules, some quizzes, right? And then at the end, inviting you to check it out, right? So that's kind of our way of doing it.
Yeah, to bring up the point of what you said earlier in the podcast was that you said that initially the way you got into this business was a banker came in, said they're looking to educate you about financial services, and at the end they tried to sell something, which kind of killed the whole mindset. Not that it wasn't already killed before that, but the reality is people want to be given the opportunity to make their own decisions. So I think it's interesting the way you're looking at that. How has Zogo been funded today? I know there's been some venture capital funding, but do you receive funding from financial services companies? Do you receive it from the actual users? What's the monetization from your perspective? And also, what's the monetization from the financial services firm's perspective?
Yeah. So we, are completely bootstrapped, believe it or not. And all of our funding, or I don't even know if we call it funding, but it's all from revenue, right? From financial institution being part of this community. We did some angel things, like angel when I was really early, but we didn't really raise venture capital or anything like that. And we did that very consciously, right? Because we want to make sure that our customers, which are the financial institutions, are going to be always front and center for us, right? Like we want to make sure they always have the best experience because they are our investors. And I, also it's because we're so young, no one wanted to give us money. But
I like that. You had the PR answer and the real answer, which is nobody wants to give us money. Yeah,
nobody. I mean, there were people that wanted to give us money, but they wanted me to like quit school and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm gonna, and I ended up graduating just like a year early so that I can focus more on Zogo. But I'm really proud that we chose this path because we have an intense focus on our customers and what their needs are, right? And we respond fast to what they want.
So how do financial institutions then pay you? How do you get monetization from them?
Yeah, so it's very simple. They pay an annual subscription fee for the service. Depends on the size of the institutions. It's a different, different fee structure, but there's also, when they integrate into their mobile banking app, that's a separate products we have. So it's just very simple. We don't want to make things complicated. And once you're part of the family, you're part of the family. We don't do this user account or like all that kind of stuff. We, in fact, want as many users as possible on the platform. One other thing is financial institutions are the one backing all the rewards in the app. So when user earn a $5 gift card, yep. When the user earn $5 gift card, the financial institution are the backer.
Got it. So really, the user, the final user, the app, the person taking the courses doesn't pay anything. The financial institution pays you a licensing fee to have it on their platform, and then they pay the rewards. That's pretty good.
Exactly.
So when you look at that overall, when you look at what you've built, are you today a profitable organization? You generating revenue?
Yep. Yeah, we've been profitable pretty much since day one. And mainly it's also because we started in college, so we were super, super cheap with ourselves. But yeah, no, we are profitable. Yeah.
So when you look at the growth, I mean, I can see it, it happens a lot of times on these podcasts. People are talking and my mind's swirling on, geez, there's so much opportunity here. When you look at the potential expansion of your concept, which is financial literacy, but it's really, more than anything else, a better and improved communication process around financial services, where do you see the biggest opportunity for Zogo? I think you mentioned you're starting to get into investment services, but what are also some opportunities you see out there that you say, this is on our potential to-do list down the way?
Yeah, I think, Jim, you hit the nail on the head about Zogo is a communication, it's a content delivery platform, right? It's a new way of delivering content. And guess what? Like every single business have content marketing and use content as a way to engage their audience, right? We were very lucky that we started in the financial services space and that financial literacy is such an important topic for our audience and for the users. But I think the opportunity is, obviously we're going to start with the financial services like insurance, right? There's a lot of things in financials like car dealerships, right? So on and so forth. But the big vision is to, have Zogo be the go-to place to learn about all the complicated things, like all the life skills that you didn't learn in school, right? And have it be sponsored by the businesses that are in that industry, right? So that's, we want to pay people to learn. That's what's really, interesting to me. We don't think people should pay to learn. Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's certainly, as you said, not just a Gen Z situation. I mean, nobody wants to admit, and we've seen this in other organizations that do communication and try to have some financial literacy impact, is that the challenge right now is people don't want to admit that they don't know things.
100%.
But if they're in an app by themselves, they don't have a real problem in trying to figure out how do I teach myself. So we've gone over the opportunities. What's been the biggest challenge to date for Zogo and for you?
Oh wow. I think definitely early days when I first started, I have so many stories of how we were scrambling because we just didn't know what we're doing. I mean, this is my first business ever. This is my first job ever. Never had a job before. So, we don't know how it works to manage employees early on. We don't know how it works to, I was very fortunate to have a group of really motivated, really smart people, right? Like to start a company with. But thinking back, I think some of the biggest challenge are definitely like, how to motivate employees, how to make sure that how we communicate to financial institutions, the messaging. And if there's one lesson that I learned throughout the past 4 years, is to keep things simple, right? There's such a thing of like simplicity is at the end of the day the biggest asset that we have. And I think there was this one point where my mindset just changed to this simplistic, minimalistic mindset, and it just changed everything.
Well, I think it's interesting because, as you know, the financial services industry is in no way simplistic. We work in the opposite direction. Account opening experiences are extraordinarily long because we feel like we have to include everything in the capture of information. So when you've met with financial institutions and going into that challenge a little bit more, everything you said today makes amazing sense. It seems very easy. I doubt if it's priced out of the marketplace. Somebody sits down with you and they love everything you say, but they don't move forward. What is the typical reason why? What stands in their way in a normal situation where you go, geez, this roadblock's been there before, and it doesn't completely surprise us?
Yeah. It's funny. It changes over time. When we first started the company, it's usually that we don't have a lot of experience and that we, a very young company. Today, most reason for not moving forward is usually timing and budgeting, their budgeting cycles. So it's just a matter of, I always tell my team, there's never a lost deal. It's just not the right time. And we're patient. And I think they will very soon realize, a credit union down the road is starting to use it and getting all these users, on their thing. And then, so it's just I think it's really interesting to see how it's been developed. Because way back in the day, like, I get so many rejections, it's crazy. But it's really cool to see like these days, a lot of the early peoples kind of saw what we have done and are very proud of the progress that we've made and decided to kind of, join 2 years later to be part of the family. And I still think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting because legacy thinking gets in the way. Any change, anything new is not the most comfortable zone for financial institutions. It goes without saying that that's probably the biggest inhibitor of moving forward is complacency. And, we use the words, budgeting cycles and, oh, geez, we didn't have this planned, or we as an industry come up with so many excuses. And the reality is most of the excuses, I love everything you're saying. It's just not what we do today. And it's crazy because you go, well, at what point does it become something you do today? It's a big challenge there. Finally, if an organization wanted to move forward with your platform, how long does it take to implement it from day one till the day you can turn on the modules?
That's actually one thing we're most proud of. It takes 24 hours and all we need from them is a logo. That's it. It takes 24 hours from contract signing to launch. They don't have to do anything. And that's one thing we learned. Like Jim, just like you said, a lot of legacy institutions are really worried about starting new things. And a part of that is really doing a lot of work to start this new thing. And then what if it doesn't work out? Money is an issue as well, but it's not as big of an issue as them putting in the work, blah, blah, blah. So we just eliminated all of that, make it super simple for them to launch. They don't have to do anything.
You don't have any data transfer.
No data transfer, no due diligence. Yeah, even when we do, something like an Amex, there's not really that big of a due diligence lift at all. So it becomes this really turnkey solution that they just have to, have money to pay, and it really doesn't need a lot of maintenance or a lot of extra work from their side.
One of these things is they give you the logo, you give the modules, everything sounds great. Does your team help them or provide them ideas on how to actually market it to their customers? Because, I've been in the banking industry long enough to know there's sometimes we buy things and then we never really turn them on or use them to their max or maximize the potential. Do you help them with that? Because obviously there's value in keeping that financial relationship, that institutional relationship, but you really, I don't think, have any benefit on a scaling. So you have them succeed is for them, not really for you.
Yeah, so we have about 50 people in the company today, and there's one department, there's like sales department, product department, whatever. But there's one department that I told them there's no limit in budget. Just spend whatever you can to get the job done, and that's the customer success department. And literally, we set a bi-weekly call with every single institution that we work with, no matter their size. Even if they're a $10 million credit unions, we still do that, just because we learn so much from them. Like we learn about what they need, and we truly care about our customer. Once again, because that self-funding kind of thing. So 100%, we have a launch meeting with them. We have a bi-weekly call with them after the launch, and throughout, we share ideas across all the institution we work with. We have roundtables where they get together and share how they've been marketing Zogo, and all kinds of ways to get them feel like they're part of a community.
Bolun, thank you so much for being on the show today. What an exciting story. You hit me at the end with a really interesting one, which is you have 50 employees. I'm going like, I'm not too sure if I know anybody at your age that's sitting there being in charge of 50 employees. So you're learning not only about what your app can do, but what you're doing as a leader too. So that's exciting. Obviously your passion for what you're doing is overwhelming, and good luck with everything going forward.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Banking Transform, rated as the top banking. Thanks for listening to Banking Transform, rated as the top banking podcast and winner of 3 international awards for podcast excellence. If you enjoy what we're doing, please give us a high rating on your favorite podcast app. Also, be sure to read my articles on the financial brand and look at the reports we're doing for the Digital Banking Report. This has been a production of Evergreen Podcast. A special thank you to our producer, Leah Longbright, audio engineer, Sean Will Hoffman, and video producer, Will Prince. I'm your host, Jim Marous. Until next time, remember, it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still achieve amazing things.